So this is M58, which is risk analysis. So basically just looking at the risks that we take, the risks, and every day everybody takes risks. You get in your car, if you get out of bed, you're basically taking risks. Even in bed, you're taking risks. And variety of risks could be environmental, so going outside, driving versus flying, riding your bike. Other risks that we can't avoid, cancer, heart disease, respiratory disease, so we can't get away from those risks. But so every day we're taking risks. So environmental hazards, if we're looking at environmental hazards, those include pollutants, chemical contaminants, driving, flying, natural catastrophes, etc. So a lot of these things we can or can't avoid as far as our risks go. So up here, understand the difference between what risk assessment is. So a risk assessment is looking at the hazard. So what is the hazard? How is it going to affect me? Am I going to be subjected to it or not? And then risk acceptance. So I've accepted my risk. I'm going to drive to school. So I've accepted the risk that that I might be the 1 in 114 that die in a car accident. And then risk management would be something that policymakers would look at. So they determine a policy from that input of risk and possibly decide, and this might be looking at chemicals in the environment. So is it acceptable? Is the risk acceptance acceptable for humans to be doing it or using it? So just understand the difference between those three terms in that figure. And then if you look at this figure, this just shows where the risks lie. So we might think that, flying in an airplane is taking a lot more risks than maybe driving in a car. But if you look at this, riding in a car, you have a 1 in 114 chance of dying in a car. Or getting in an accident anyways. And then, but an airplane is 1 in 9,821. So quite a bit difference. But if you look under my sticky note, you can see that heart disease, cancer, respiratory disease, that way outweighs any external risk. So basically your health puts you at a lot more risk than anything else that you do. So thinking about that, the leading cause of heart disease and cancer, cancer is genetics or external things, but heart disease can be genetics, but a lot of it has to do with your choices as far as exercise, eating, and that kind of stuff goes. So, this is kind of in your hands as far as increasing or decreasing your risk. And then same thing with respiratory disease. This could be due to indoor or outdoor air pollutants. But definitely smoking and choices like that greatly affect your chances for respiratory disease. And then moving over here, this is the equation. So just know this equation for calculating risk. Over break, you will have to ask a few people about their choices and calculate their risk. So it should be a fun little thing to do with looking at people's choices. And then thinking about, so there's qualitative and quantitative decisions. So why do humans make qualitative versus quantitative decisions? So think about it. When you get in a car or it's snowing out or maybe the weather's bad, you might think twice about getting in the car because you deem it to be unsafe. Well, you're not thinking about quantitative decisions. You're not calculating the exact risk with numbers. So qualitative is thinking about maybe assessing what's going to happen, or you need to slow down, or you probably shouldn't be doing that. You probably don't think that when you go out in a thunderstorm that you have a 1 in 100,000 chance of dying in a lightning strike. You probably aren't thinking of those reasons. So that would be kind of the main thing there. And then over on this, just know on this, so it talks about innocent until proven guilty versus precautionary principle. So the U.S. kind of takes this innocent until proven guilty principle where we're just going to use things until it actually causes some problems, and then we're going to back off and maybe calculate the lethal dose or the ED 50 or something like that. Whereas a lot of other countries, developed countries, Europe, for example, uses the precautionary principle where we're going to the company that's using this needs to tell us and show us that it's unsafe, or safe, to use, rather than, well, we'll just try it and see what goes, and oops, well, we'll just have to pay you out, and if something happens. So that's kind of the difference there. So I definitely like the precautionary principle better. I think that's better for everybody. But then it can lead to tighter regulations. There can be negative things. So it could lead to tighter regulations maybe on drugs that are prescribed for diseases or things like that. So it could backfire too. It's not always going to be the good thing. But if you're thinking about chemicals in the environment, not drugs, but chemicals in the environment, then yeah, I think precautionary principle would probably be the better choice. So then that's what this says, is just how are these two approaches different? Which does the U.S. take? Well, they generally take the innocent until proven guilty stance. And then the last part here, what are the dirty dozen? So the Stockholm Convention deemed 12 chemicals as kind of this dirty dozen. So we should not be using those. And then the list is now up to 32. But know what the dirty dozen were. So what 12 were there that are listed? And then know what REACH is. So REACH stands for registration, evaluation, authorization, and restriction of chemicals. And basically, it's a precautionary principle putting more responsibility on chemical manufacturers to confirm that their chemicals that they're using are safe. They're not going to hurt anybody out in the environment or be toxic. And then I put, of course, know what the Stockholm Convention is. So the Stockholm Convention has to do with these dirty dozen. So it's kind of an agreement between countries to not use those bad 12 chemicals, which, like I said, are now up to 32. So know what those two policies are, and risk management. And that is it for M58.